Hey heroes, welcome to another star-spanning episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is sponsored in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel, then you can sign up for $1 per month over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. The Kree-Skrull War was an intergalactic conflict spanning millions of years, the origins of which can be traced back to the first meeting of the two species when the Skrull Emperor Dorek I visited the Kree homeworld of Hala, and in the modern age of heroes, superpowered champions have emerged on both sides. The shape-shifting Skrulls, for example, successfully endowed one of their own with all the abilities of the Fantastic Four, transforming Kl'rt into a Super Skrull. Meanwhile, there was a decorated Kree war hero, Captain Mar-Vell, whose name soon became infamous among both peoples. You see, while Mar-Vell won many victories over the Skrulls in his military career, he also disobeyed orders and defended the Earth, where he was known as the superhero Captain Marvel. He clashed with the Super Skrull several times, and in the aftermath of one encounter, he was captured and brought back to the Skrull throne world Tarnax 4. It was there that Mar-Vell met the Skrull princess Enel, the daughter of Emperor Dorek VII. Wishing to oppose her father and end the war, Enel conspired with the captured Kree man and freed him. The Super Skrull also aided in their escape, having been betrayed and imprisoned by Emperor Dorek. In the midst of all of this, Enel fell in love with Mar-Vell, and the two shared a brief but passionate romance. But it was Mar-Vell's human ally, Rick Jones, who then ended the Kree-Skrull War, at least for the time being, by using a power known as the Destiny Force to temporarily freeze every member of both species in place. However, channeling such power was nearly fatal for the human, and so in order to save his life, Mar-Vell was forced to molecularly bond his own life force to Rick's. While the two eventually separated again, Mar-Vell effectively sacrificed his future with Enel to save his friend's life, and he never saw her again. His heroic exploits continued to make him a pariah among the Kree and eventually led to his death after he contracted an incurable form of cancer in the line of duty. Shortly before his passing, it was the Skrulls who honored him and saluted him as their greatest enemy, awarding him the Royal Skrull Medal of Valor. While that marks the end of Captain Mar-Vell, it also brings us to the beginning of another story. You see, while her time with him was short, by the time Mar-Vell died, Enel had given birth to their hybrid child, Dorek VIII. However, when her father, the Emperor, learned who had sired his grandson, he ordered that the child be killed. Desperate to keep her only son safe, Princess Enel turned the baby over to her trusted battle maiden, Antalya the Sun-Clothed. Antalya departed the world of her birth and embarked on a journey through time and space, intending on one day uniting the child with his father on Earth. Of course, in the wake of Captain Marvel's death, that day never came, and instead she raised the child as her own. She crafted human identities for both of them, and with her natural shape-shifting abilities, Antalya the Sun-Clothed became Mary Jo Altman. Dorek VIII, meanwhile, became Theodore Rufus Altman, or Teddy, and grew up unaware of his alien heritage. While he also possessed Skrullian shape-shifting abilities, his Kree side allowed him to naturally fit in among humans, and his mom explained his powers by telling him that he was a mutant. He grew up with an interest in fantasy and superheroes, and Mary Jo would spend time with him by bringing him to science fiction conventions. While all that was happening, off in space, Emperor Dorek was murdered by his own wife for a kill, who then seized control of the Empire. However, her reign came to an abrupt end when the World Eater Galactus came to Tarnax 4. The Skrull throne world was destroyed, and Princess Enel perished with it. and so Mary Jo Altman was the only family that Teddy had, and the only mother he'd ever known, but regardless of blood, their love was real. Because of his heritage, he was superhumanly strong and naturally athletic, allowing him to excel in sports. Through this, he befriended a boy named Greg Norris, the captain of the high school basketball team. Teddy eventually revealed his shape-shifting powers to Greg, who decided to take advantage of them. Working with Greg, Teddy impersonated celebrities and superheroes mostly for their own amusement. It was during this time that a conflict with the Scarlet Witch resulted in the Avengers disassembling and their mansion headquarters being left in ruins. Meanwhile, Teddy soon took notice of another classmate, a boy named Billy Kaplan. Billy was relentlessly bullied for being gay both by Teddy's friend Greg and another student, John Kessler. Quiet and nerdy, Billy avoided conflict and stayed out of the cafeteria during lunchtime so he could read his comics in peace. Teddy decided to take this opportunity to properly introduce himself to the other boy, offering to share his lunch as his mother tended to make large sandwiches. The two grew close quickly, bonding over their shared love of superheroes, and Teddy invited Billy to watch one of his football games. Teddy quickly took a liking to his new friend and gushed to his mother about their time together. And so when Billy did show up to Teddy's next football game, Mary Jo was happy to meet him. She then made an excuse to leave and asked Billy to walk her son home, giving the boys a chance to be alone together. But first, she made the young man promise that he would take care of Teddy. After the game, John and Greg came to harass Billy while he was waiting, but Teddy soon came to his defense. Despite this, Teddy was somewhat oblivious to how bad Greg's harassment of Billy was, likely not wanting to see the worst in his friend. And so Greg was subsequently able to convince Teddy to use his shape-shifting ability and get them inside the ruins of Avengers Mansion. He wanted to plunder the grounds for valuable they could resell, which Teddy was uncomfortable with. Fittingly enough, one of the items they found was a portrait of Captain Marvel and Rick Jones. In the end, Teddy stopped Greg from taking anything, causing a rift between the two boys. It was while he was putting the portrait back that Teddy first encountered an armored young man calling himself Iron Lad. He just so happened to be a younger incarnation of the time-traveling supervillain Kang the Conqueror. To make a long and complicated story as simple as possible, Kang wanted to jumpstart his infamous career by traveling to his own past and giving weapons and technology to his younger self. That backfired when the would-be conqueror rejected his villainous future and escaped into the past. He intended on going to the Avengers for help, only to find that the team had disbanded, and so instead he created the Iron Lad identity and decided to assemble his own team of Avengers. While Teddy took some time to think about his offer, one day at school, Billy saw John Kessler picking on another boy. He attempted to intervene, and Billy discovered that he also had powers when he inadvertently electrocuted Kessler with magical lightning. The bully survived, and Billy was subsequently approached by Iron Lad as well. Teddy meanwhile heard about what happened at school and found Billy sitting outside of Avengers Mansion as he often did. Teddy revealed his shape-shifting powers to Billy, assuming a green Hulk-like form. Billy asked which was his true form, but because of his hybrid nature, each one felt equally natural, and thus both were the real Teddy. It was there in the shadow of Avengers Mansion that the two boys shared their first kiss. After that, Iron Lad returned to ask them if they'd come to a decision, and the two agreed. While Teddy took the name Hulkling, Billy, not yet aware of his full potential, employed his lightning-casting abilities as Asgardian. They soon added a fourth member to their team with Eli Bradley, Patriot, the grandson of the African-American super soldier Isaiah Bradley. In preparation for Kang's inevitable arrival, Iron Lad led the young Avengers on several missions, garnering a level of media coverage. This naturally caught the attention of Iron Man and Captain America, who, along with superhuman private investigator Jessica Jones, attempted to dissuade the teenagers from endangering themselves with superheroics. Their exploits also attracted the attention of two teenage girls who wanted to join the team, Cassie Lang, the daughter of Ant-Man, and Kate Bishop, who became the new Hawkeye. Of course, the whole situation came to a head when Kang arrived and the Young Avengers assembled to oppose him. After defeating his older self, Iron Lad begrudgingly returned to his proper place and time to fulfill his destiny and prevent any damage to the time stream. Following that, Kate provided the teens with new costumes so they could continue operating as Young Avengers with or without the approval of their older counterparts. She also suggested a new code name for Billy since his powers were less about casting lightning and more about casting magical spells in general, and thus Asgardian became Wiccan. They continued their adventures, but then one day the Super Skrull arrived and attempted to bring Teddy back to Skrull space. However, Teddy slipped from his grasp and the Young Avengers fled to Billy's home. By the time they arrived, Mary Jo Altman was already there, worried and looking for her son. She wanted to finally tell him the truth, but before she could, the Super Skrull tracked them there. Kl'rt then used a device meant to unmask Teddy's true form and prove that he was also a Skrull. While this had no effect on him due to his hybrid nature, it did reveal Mary Jo's real face. Determined to protect her adopted son, she pulled a Skrullian weapon from her purse and attacked Kl'rt. However, the Super Skrull struck back with the powers of the Human Torch, engulfing her in flames. Billy tried to use his magic to heal her, but there was nothing he could do before it was too late. Mary Jo Altman, originally known as Antalya the Sun-Clothed, was gone. In the confusion, the Super Skrull slipped away with Teddy, holding him captive and explaining his royal heritage. And so the Young Avengers added two new members to their roster to help rescue him. The first was a new incarnation of the Vision, created through a combination of Iron Lad's armor and recorded brain patterns, along with a copy of the previous Vision's operating system. The other was Billy's long-lost twin brother, Tommy, aka Speed, which frankly is a whole other can of worms. In any event, their rescue attempt was cut short when Kree soldiers arrived, intent on conscripting Teddy into their military. While he learned the identity of his biological mother from the Super Skrull, the Kree revealed to Teddy that his father was Captain Marvel. Furthermore, since Mar-Vell was one of their soldiers by Kree-La, his son, Dork-Vel, had no choice but to enlist. However, Teddy resisted and the Young Avengers escaped, taking the injured Super Skrull with them. Kl'rt expressed remorse over killing one of his own people and explained that his mission was to retrieve Dorek the Eighth so that he could assume his rightful place at the head of the Skrull Empire. Of course, the Kree were unwilling to let that happen, and the whole situation erupted into a battle that threatened to reignite the Kree-Skrull War. But in the end, a deal was brokered for Dork-Vel to spend 6 Earth months with each race, after which he would decide upon his allegiance. But in an attempt to make amends, the Super Skrull used his own shape-shifting powers to secretly take his place, allowing Teddy to continue his life on Earth. In the aftermath of that battle, Mary Jo's remains were cremated and released over the grounds of Avengers Mansion, among monuments to other fallen heroes. Having earned the approval of the senior heroes, Hulkling and Wiccan continued operating as Young Avengers and continued their relationship. During the first superhero civil war, the Young Avengers met another group of remarkable teenagers, the Runaways, one of whom was a Skrull named Zavin, so Teddy again heard about how he was supposed to be a great unifier that would bring the fractured Skrull Empire back together. He also aided Captain America's side during the conflict, proving himself invaluable when he impersonated Hank Pym and released a large number of captive heroes. After the Civil War, it seemed as though Wiccan and Hulkling signed up for the government's Initiative program. That may seem a little bit out of character, but that's because those were actually alternate reality counterparts from Earth A, who were eventually caught and sent home. The real Teddy later had an opportunity to connect with his father, albeit briefly, when Mar-Vell was seemingly pulled forward in time. In reality, that was actually a Skrull named Knurr who was transformed into a duplicate of Mar-Vell so perfect that even he believed himself to be the real thing. That was done using the same process that the Skrull Queen Veranke employed to create sleeper agents for her secret invasion of Earth. It should be noted that Veranke's forces were a religiously fanatical sect of Skrulls completely separate from the Imperial House of Dorek, who had amassed power in the wake of Ternax 4's destruction. And so when that queen sent her own newly created Super Skrulls to eliminate Dorek VIII, he was aided by Zavan, the aforementioned runaway, who still believed that he could unite their race. Meanwhile, as the secret invasion erupted into open warfare, the Skrull Captain Marvel battled the approaching fleet until he fell to Earth and perished. Hulkling subsequently participated in the gigantic final battle to defeat Veranke's forces once and for all. After that, during Norman Osborn's Dark Reign, the Young Avengers encountered another group going by the same name. Teddy and Billy befriended one of their members, the Enchantress Sylvie Lushton. However, this other team proved to be dangerously unstable and rebranded as the Young Masters after the villainous Masters of Evil. The Young Masters betrayed the Young Avengers by calling in Osborn and his Dark Avengers, but that confrontation ended in a stalemate. The real Young Avengers then joined forces with a heroic group of mighty Avengers and aided in a conflict against the deposed Inhuman King known only as the Unspoken. And after that, Osborn's Dark Reign came to an abrupt end with his attempted siege on Asgard, another conflict that the Young Avengers were involved with. The young heroes later went on a crusade to find Billy's real mother, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, who had been missing since the House of M incident. The older Avengers attempted to stop them, but Billy, Teddy, and the others joined forces with Wanda's alleged father, Magneto, and tracked her to the Balkan nation of Latveria. Naturally, this led to a massive battle involving both teams of Avengers and the infamous Latverian ruler, Dr. Doom. For the full context surrounding these events, you can see my video about the twin children of the Scarlet Witch linked in the description below. The important thing for today is that when Dr. Doom briefly usurped Wanda's powers, the young Avenger, Cassie Lang, was killed in the resulting battle. Not only that, but the young Vision was destroyed by Iron Lad, who had come back in time to help with the conflict. In the wake of that, the Young Avengers disbanded, and Teddy intended on retiring from superheroics to focus on his relationship with Billy. However, Billy fell into a depression and kept himself isolated for months. Teddy finally succeeded in getting through to him, expressing his interest in eventually getting married. Furthermore, Captain America and the other older heroes decided to honor the Young Avengers, declaring that they were indeed heroes worthy of the name. Teddy moved in with Billy and his foster parents, and the two agreed to hang up their superhero identities for good. However, Teddy couldn't resist the urge to try and help people and began sneaking out and fighting crime by impersonating other heroes. This led to a bit of an argument with Billy, who was upset when he found out, but Teddy wasn't willing to suppress that side of himself. Wanting to make amends, Billy attempted to save Mary Jo Altman by pulling her from an alternate timeline moments before her death. However, what he actually summoned was a shape-shifting extra-dimensional parasite known as Mother. To combat this threat, a new team of Young Avengers came together, which included a younger version of Loki, who'd been reincarnated in that form following his death in the Siege of Asgard. But as it turns out, Loki had been manipulating things for his own ends and was secretly responsible for Billy getting the idea to try and resurrect Mary Jo. He also planted doubts in Teddy's mind, causing him to question if Billy had been using his reality warping magic to make him into a more perfect boyfriend. But in the end, Mother was defeated and Teddy embraced the fact that the love he and Billy had for one another was true. For the full story on that version of the team and their battles with Mother, you can read the 2013 Young Avengers series that lasted for 15 issues. After that, during the events of Original Sin, Hulkling and two other Young Avengers, Prodigy and Marvel Boy, clashed with the aspiring crime lord known as the Hood. Hulkling and Wiccan then joined another group when the mutant billionaire Sunspot bought out Advanced Idea Mechanics and used their resources to create a new Avengers team. During this time, Teddy and Billy were abducted by a faction of Kree-Skrull hybrids called the Knights of the Infinite. This group was founded generations ago by Dorek Supreme, named for the Skrull Imperial House of Dorek, and the Kree Supreme Intelligence. He wielded a weapon known as the Star Sword Excelsior, created by the mystical fusion of his mother and father's blades. The Knights of the Infinite believed that Hulkling was the reincarnation of Dorek Supreme, which was seemingly confirmed when he pulled the Star Sword from the Light of Truth. After some more missions with the new Avengers, Teddy and Billy were given a New York apartment by Sunspot. The two lived there together for some time, engaging in occasional heroics, but eventually the day came when they decided not to wait any longer. They gathered their friends together, including Cassie Lang, who had since been resurrected by a remorseful Dr. Doom. They all met in Las Vegas, where Teddy and Billy were married with a small, private ceremony, and thus legally became Theodore and William Kaplan Altman. Teddy also accepted his apparent destiny to become the so-called King of Space, and united the Kree and Skrull empires. This unification was facilitated with the return of the Kotati, a plant race originally from the Kree planet Hala, who threatened both races. Meanwhile, astronauts for the Kree-Skrull Alliance found the remains of Captain Mar-Vell's Negabands, which had been used in the creation of a superweapon called a Negabomb. I talked about that stuff in my video about Mar-Vell's other son, Genis-Vell, so you can see that for more details. Teddy asked the people of Asgard to melt down the remains of his father's Negabands and reforge them into a pair of wedding bands for himself and Billy. The two then had a second wedding ceremony in space, in which William Kaplan Altman was dubbed the Emperor's Prince Consort and the court wizard of the Kree-Skrull Alliance. And that more or less brings us up to the present day. For more details on the unification of the Kree and Skrull and their war with the Kotati, you can check out the crossover event Empire. That's Empire with a Y. Also be sure to check out my video about the Kree-Skrull War first, as it contains a lot of the background information needed to fully appreciate that storyline. But that is all I've got for you this week, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here, and vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!